Yeah, well, welcome to the show, Kai. As you can see over here, right, Dan told me that you like to have a mix of red wine and Sprite. Is that correct?
Oh, you nearly have it there. It's usually a lower carb mixer like
A lower
Coke,
carb.
like Coke Zero
Coke Zero.
or Sprite Zero, because
Yeah.
that's why you're drinking it, because you don't want to drink the extra calories.
Yeah, but then what's life without a bit of sugar, right?
I know, mate. Well,
Well, what's the proportion? Tell me, how much, like in terms of soda to wine, like what
just
do we
half and half.
half
eh?
and half,
Yeah.
is it?
So this is a drink we used to drink a lot in Thailand when I was living
Thailand.
over there. So
Oh, yeah.
it's an acquired taste. A lot of people give you a filthy look when you mix red wine with.
Well, it's funny because like I was really apprehensive about trying it, and then I talked to Jay Lee last night, and she was telling me that she had it for the first time, and she was like,
Change
"Oh,
your life.
it's good." She's like, it's like sweeter, but you don't get the hangover.
Oh,
in the
exactly.
same-
Yeah.
in the same sense. So I see what you're doing there, Kai. Smart thinking. Let's see.
You know, it's not your top shelf wine. It's your
But this is-
cheapest
this is-
red wine, but that's all you need. You know.
Yeah, this is countdown wine, bro. You know, I was trying to use it for cooking to be fancy, but yeah,
Oh, it does the job, man.
it does the job. Okay, let's see.
Chin chin.
Oh fuck that, Kai.
It's not bad,
Kai
eh?
cut off France knows his piss. Okay, yeah, no, that's actually good.
Yeah.
That's good. I can.
Good body. You know, aromas. What are you smelling?
What's right now? All I'm smelling is like
It's quite
just fruity shit.
fruity.
Yeah,
It's quite voluptuous, eh?
voluptuous. Fucking.
It's quite tedious.
Do you just carry around like a fucking dictionary or something? Like voluptuous, sensual.
I'm just throwing wine words at you. You know, oaky.
Like a condensate now.
Yeah.
Nah, it's fucking good.
It's not bad, eh? Like, it's better than people would expect.
It's actually really fucking
I've ordered
good.
at a few bars, and some bartenders know it, some don't.
It's growing on me now, like, because Dan calls it spritz, right? But then I'm like, I've had spritz before, and it tastes a bit different. This is better.
Yeah, I've never really had a name for it. I guess I'll come up with a name right now. The Don't Blink Special. Yeah,
Okay,
you
fuck,
take
we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. You gotta start it. You gotta
I could have franchised it like Proper 12.
Yeah, you could, bro.
I could, eh?
I bet there's heaps of crafties over here that would like do that for you.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
It's something that I could look into. It could be, we could go into business here.
bro.
you know?
We could fucking do that, bro. Like I'm telling you, so many bitches will drink this as well. I'm telling you right now. In the North Chalk, this would take off.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm not afraid to drink it. You know?
Yeah, nah, but I'm just saying, like, what I mean, like, any nightclub, right? You have this, or like pre-drinks, this would be perfect, you know?
Of course.
Because, like, you can get on a good buzz, right?
Mm.
And, like, you know, it tastes good, and you don't have to worry about a hangover as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want to get through to the athlete demographic, and I think this is the way to go
The
down.
athlete demographic. But that's so varied, eh? Like, because, like, you would drink this, right? But then Dan drinks anything. Brad drinks beer mostly,
Well,
right?
he's from Christchurch, so yeah,
Yeah.
he's a southerner.
Yeah. Does he like about Spates and shit? Or
Oh,
just drinking?
I think Heineken is his favorite.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Heineken. That's like the one beer. That Steinlager's, I can't have it. It
Yeah.
has to be like Lion Reds, BBs, Fosters, Double Browns.
Why is that? Is that because of the price or?
They just taste good. Yeah.
Like in your past life, were you like a Mully or something?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Like the ones with the crates.
Yeah.
They just have good taste. I've got good
You
taste.
check them out.
Is it, your taste seems like it's an acquired taste.
But I wanted to talk to you about, you started training when you were 10 years old, was it?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
10 years old. So you were doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when you first started out, was it?
Yes.
Where were you training?
I started at Strike Force in Avondale.
Oh, so you did start at Strike
Yeah, I
Force.
started
Holy
at Strike
fuck.
Force. So I went down with one of my friends. His dad used to do jiu-jitsu, and you know, told me to come down to the gym with my friend, and then had my first session. You know, I didn't know anything, and I was just trying to rugby tackle people down, and I kind of just I like the feeling of I got a sense of achievement. You know, after doing a full session. And I was like, I like this and I want to keep at it. So I just stuck at it for about 2 years, and then I stopped just because I had so many sports that I was playing at that time. I was about 12 and I was playing soccer, tennis, I was snowboarding, mountain biking.
Fucking hell.
I was playing pretty much every sport that I could, and then I was doing jiu-jitsu. So it was just a bit too much on my plate to kind of keep up. And then when I started high school, I was always the smallest in my class. So I used to get bullied quite badly. And at one point I stopped going to school just because I keep getting beaten up, and my mum saw the bruises on me.
How frequent was it? Like,
like every week I was getting tormented in class. Like I remember one time in the bathrooms, after I just went toilet, someone came up behind me, like got me in a full Nelson where they put their hands behind my head, and I was locked in.
Like
and someone just hit me with a punch right to the stomach, and like I didn't know how to defend myself really, so I was winded, and I felt so vulnerable. I still remember how I felt, and it sucked. So I'd never wished that upon anyone, growing up, but that is what got me down to back down to the gym.
Yeah.
So my mum, I remember she wrote a letter to this. Oh, she got me to write a letter of what happened, and then she went down to the school, and I didn't want to.
You don't want to make a scene.
No, exactly. That's the worst thing you can do. If you're
especially
bullied.
like when because you're an intermediate as well, and then like you don't want people to think you're like a little bitch as well, right? Because like you're getting beaten up, but then at the same time, like when you get teachers involved and shit, like it's still you feel it because like that peer pressure as well to like not
exactly, and you become like the snitch and stuff like that. So it sucked, but if those bullies didn't do what they did, I wouldn't have got back into mixed martial arts and started my my journey to where I am now. So it's funny how it all happens, and now my bullies are my biggest fans, and I fight professionally for a living. So
it's a colourful journey, that's to say the least. I mean, if we take a look at it, right, not many people can say, in fact, like very few can say that they were on a path to be an MMA fighter from the time that they were a kid. Like the fact of the matter is that you had your first pro fight when you were 17 years old. And a lot of people can't say that. It's very deceptive to look at you to be now you're 26, right?
Yeah.
You're 26. So, I mean, like a lot of people don't have even half the fights under their belt that you have by the time that they're 26. When they see a record, they're like, holy fuck. Like, how long have you fucking been doing this?
It's just one of those things that when I got back into mixed martial arts when I was 15, I was so keen to just jump in straight away. I wasn't, gifted and talented. I just had to keep working hard at the craft and pick up all the aspects of mixed martial arts. I didn't really start. I wasn't a specialist at anything. I didn't start at one thing. I picked up MMA all at once. Yeah. So, I was doing grappling, kickboxing, wrestling, boxing all at the same time.
Did you pick this all up when you returned to Strikeforce?
Yeah.
So how old are you at this point?
So I was about 14, I think.
14, yeah. So you're 14 at this point, and you're picking that all up.
Yeah.
And what I was really curious about was, what was your experience like the first time you had to spar there at Strikeforce? Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I thought it was crazy how hard these guys hit and how hard they spar at Strikeforce. They're always known for, even to this day, known for how hard they spar, and you see that in their fights, that when they get hit, they don't care.
Yeah,
they've been hit with harder shots, and it's not the best way to go about your career, but it definitely shows at an early start.
It's an advantage at the early points.
Exactly, because you're going to be tougher than your opponent,
and you're comfortable in adversity because of the fact that you're going through that on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So it was a good thing at the start, just to kind of like gauge where you're at, and it definitely weeds out the weaker people at the gym. So if you're in the fight team at Strikeforce, these guys are tough.
Yeah.
And at that point, everyone in the gym was a champion in New Zealand. I remember walking through the doors and I remember seeing Rod, Hot Rod McSwain. He was like the guy back then that was like the face of New Zealand MMA, and he was our coach pretty much. obviously we had our head coach Aaron Boyce. That was we learned a lot off him, and he was more of a stand-up fighter, so we had to learn from each other, kind of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So that's why Dan and Rod became our head coaches, just because they were learning on the fly. That they were coaching and still fighting themselves, but they kind of took me under their wing and showed me the way, and I kind of embraced the lifestyle from such an early age. And this is what I always wanted to do when I was growing up. I didn't want to be an All Black. I was always too small, and I knew that wasn't going to be my future. But I always saw the UFC as an end goal for me, and kind of just always stuck at it. So yeah, it's been a big journey. I started at a young age, and one thing that what was awesome for me is just getting exposure and getting experience. So even though I was losing fights, you can't win them all. Yeah. You never lose. You always learn.
But there's context is important there. Like the thing is, like people can look at a record and think one thing, right? But you have to give into context a lot of things. Like people don't know about the fact that you're 17 when you're having a lot of these fights, and they also don't know about the fact that you're fighting extremely experienced opponents as well. Like Chad George, like when you had him, right? The guy was well into his career, very deep. He's 29 years old, and they're putting a 17-year-old against him. And the thing is, it's you got to start somewhere at the end of the day. And I mean, we'll get into that. But what I wanted to touch on was when you're training, right? And before your pro career starting, you're still training. You're training out of Strikeforce. Were you doing amateur fights or anything like that?
Yeah, I had about 3 amateur MMA fights.
Yeah.
And then there was no one else to fight, so it was pretty much don't fight or go pro.
Or go pro, pretty much, right? And at this point, look, like you're still in high school as well, right? So I mean, like, what was your schedule like? So you're going to school, and then straight after that, you're going to Strikeforce?
Yeah. So like, I was still playing soccer for two teams, my school and my club. And I was juggling, MMA training as well. So my schedule was, so packed, because I went to Mount Albert Grammar. That was my high school. I went there for soccer. So, I was trying to crack it into the first 11 and, hopefully progress my career from there. But, I found out from an early age, pretty much when in high school, that, I was just going to be a number. I wasn't the greatest, but I was like in that middle tier where like I was just kind of just a number in that sport. So I was like, I kind of want to do something where I can just rely on myself. Not saying that mixed martial arts is not an individual sport, because you need a team around you to train and stuff.
But it's a different dynamic.
Exactly. When you're in the cage and the ring, you can only rely on yourself. And I love that about that sport, because you find out a lot about yourself and what you're really made of. And I love that mental aspect of the sport where you can push through adversity and find a way to win, and that's just like life. You gotta take what you're given and kind of just find a way to make it work. So
absolutely. Did you have a reputation though, like in high school? Like, do you have a reputation around there as being a bit of a bad boy because you're doing mixed martial arts as well?
No, I had the complete opposite. So in high school, I was so shy. I remember going to class and I would barely talk, and that's just always been me. I'm not really an outgoing person like that. And in high school, I didn't like to tell people that I do mixed martial arts. It wasn't for that reason. I didn't do the sport for that. I did it for myself. And I remember fighting so this was my first pro fight where I fought in Supremacy. This was at the YMCA in the city. Ended up getting a head kick knockout first round. And the next day I had an exam. So after the fight, I remember it was Richie Hardcore. He was interviewing me. Said, "Hey bro, how you gonna celebrate your fight?" And I was like, "Oh, I gotta go home and study. I gotta
study for NCA." My mum's already pissed off. It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's why this fight was only a minute. But I gotta get home now. So it was a pretty.
So you didn't cream that at all. You didn't tell the ladies back in high school about that. You weren't just like, think about how many girls would have been like, "Oh, it's that bad boy Kai. He fights in a cage, but he's so quiet and so mysterious."
Yeah. Well, you just wouldn't think of it because I was so small. Like I was in shape back in high school, but I was still short, and I wasn't, you know, going around telling that
Yeah,
I do
of
fighting.
course.
So
Yeah.
it was people started to see that I was doing well, and they saw that I was fighting, and the fights on Supremacy were aired on Sky Sports, so people did get to see it, which was pretty big back then, you know, because coming from it was the sport was still growing back then, especially in New Zealand. It wasn't that popular, and getting it on Sky Sport made it a lot more mainstream, and a lot of those guys that fight on Supremacy back then are now, you know, still doing the sport, and now most of them are in the UFC now. So it's pretty cool to come from, you know, the kind of pioneering start of mixed martial arts, especially in New Zealand. Not saying that we were the first people to do it at all. But
you guys were doing it when it wasn't like a popular thing to do. That's one of the biggest things. Like for me, like if you told me like 10 years ago that you know someone would dedicate their life to being a cage fighter and there was no money in it, I would have been like, what the fuck are you doing it for?
Yeah,
you know, the thing is, see, like the popularity and everything that's come now, you know, has encouraged a lot of people to take the sport up, and that's really good.
Yeah.
But you don't really understand true passion unless you understand people like yourself that did it at a time where there was nothing in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like there wasn't, you weren't getting paid to turn up and get it, you know, beaten up and stuff. And back then, if you had a hard session, you know, if it wasn't for you, you wouldn't come back. There's a lot of guys that we started with that aren't doing it now, just because it takes a certain person to keep coming back, keep getting beaten up, keep you know, working hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't make it in the sport.
That's a big life lesson though, isn't it? I mean, about the fact that, you know, if there's something that you want to do, you have to be 100% in it, in the sense that, you know, you can't sort of dip your toes in, you know, because the thing is, if you're actually passionate about something, you're gonna. I've always felt like you're gonna organically have a commitment to that. You know, if it's something that you're 100% passionate about, you know, if you're just doing it because you want to learn a few things, right? You're easily gonna lose interest in that because you know you learn some hard lessons from mixed martial arts. You know, and that's one of the things about yourself as well. I mean, consistency has been one of the underlying foundations to your success. I mean, especially when I look at your first fight and then I look at your fights now and the massive growth spurt and seeing the different points where you had these massive jumps in your development as well. It's really interesting to see. Like when I look at Kai from his first fight, your first pro fight, everything was so different about the way you moved, you know, the way you held yourself, the way you approached a fight, to how you were just like 2 years later and then again 2 years later. And it's crazy to see that. Like, so it's an example about how consistency has its own rewards through incremental growth at the same time. It's crazy that way. I mean, what was your feeling like after your first pro fight win? Like,
I remember after my first fight, my first amateur fight, the first one I've ever had, I was so nervous going into that. I didn't know how I was going to react. You know, I've never been in a fight before. You know, obviously with my older brother and stuff, that you just play fighting, but never like in a real fight where you can actually, you know, hurt somebody.
oh, for sure.
So I was so nervous having my family there watching. I lost that fight, but I knew straight away I was hooked. You know, this is what I wanted to do. Win or lose, I loved the experience. I loved how I could test myself against another person.
Did you feel like embarrassed and like, you know, like about the fact that it's your first amateur fight and you got all these people watching? Because for a lot of people, right, that can be soul shattering from the standpoint that, you know, when you get beaten up in front of a crowd, right? And especially when your loved ones are there watching it, you know, it can be really hard to go through. I mean, did you experience that at all?
Yeah, like obviously I was, you know, gutted that I didn't win, but the journey to get to where I was, you know, I had already won the fight in my eyes, just because I'd gotten in the ring and it was such a big thing for me just to get in there and have a go. And the guy was a lot experienced and a lot bigger, and I took it to him. So you could definitely take a lot of positives out of that. And, you know, I didn't really care that, that had gone the way it did. I knew that I wanted to do it again, and I went back to training, you know, that Monday, and got straight back into it. So
it's a pretty mature mindset to take in at that age.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can take away, positives from that and also look at it as a learning experience to a bigger goal, like where you're looking at it as part of a process as opposed to like, this is the end all and be all.
Yeah. Well, I just had good people around me, Dan and Rod and the whole fight team that was back there at Strike Force. So we just had a good, bunch of guys that always, pick you back up when you needed to. And then, they just said all the right things. And Dan was he was one of my main mentors back then, or still is now.
Yeah. I was talking to him about this like a few weeks back when me and him were filming the first episode. Like, I've never seen him get nervous or more invested in a fight unless he's watching your fight. Like, when we were watching like your first UFC fight, right? I remember we were at this fight night. Like, one of the boys was having like his first fight, and like it's like a Sunday. And like your fight's coming on, right? Yeah. He stopped everything. Like we're all huddled around a phone watching it, right? And like you can tell he's getting antsy. He's like moving when you're moving. And then the same thing like when we're watching you in Melbourne as well. It was the same thing. We're like, it was a crazy. Like I'd never seen him like that. Like where he's just like fixed on what's going on, and every time you're doing something, he's like, oh shit. Oh shit. And I think that's to do with the long relationship you two have had and the fact that it's lasted over like 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been Dan's always been a guy that's always been there for me. Especially, being there right from the start of my MMA journey. And then when I was living in Thailand, he was one of the main guys cornering me. So it would just be me and him flying out to all these different countries, and we didn't know what to expect, so we were taking it as it was coming. And he was the one that was telling me what to do. I was just kind of listen to what he had to say for training wise and all that. And then in the corner, I just listened for his call. And and then it's been awesome to kind of see the relationship go from strength to strength, being at his wedding in Thailand, me just living there, and then him taking his wedding over to Phuket and having his whole family there. So it was cool to see that side of him. I mostly always just see that training side and that serious side of Dan.
I've never seen that side, I don't know. Nah, like, so that's the thing I've heard about.
He does smile, he does have a smile.
That's what I know, but like the thing is, like, I only know Dan like when we're having beers or we're at the gym training. Like, I don't know like Dan in terms of like his training relationship like with you guys, but like one of the things that I really wanted to touch out with you as well was because like when I was watching your second fight against Chad Jord, right? I can't help but feel like that is emotionally devastating, like having that after having such a great win in your first one as well. Like, did you still have that same sort of focus in terms of a bigger picture there going right after?
Yeah, like that fight was I was thrown kind of in the deep end. There wasn't anyone else to. They were asking for guys that wanted to take this fight, and my coaches at the time just said, it's a good experience and a good fight for you to kind of see where you're at.
So it wasn't necessarily going in with the expectation that you were going to win the fight. Obviously, you want to win the fight, but it was more of an expectation that you were going to gain something from that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like it was a big ask for me. I was only 18 at the time or something. But yeah, like I just. My mentality back then was just I'm gonna just go all in, I'll take it to him. If I lose, I lose, but I'll at least go out trying.
Yeah.
So I did get stopped that fight. I remember just kind of being out of my depth. It was a lot to take in. Not just he was a lot bigger than me, but like just kind of being in that. I kind of already mentally blocked myself, thinking like this guy's a vet. He's had so many fights, and then before the fight already happened, it was in my head, that self-doubt. Yeah. But I just had to kind of block it out and,
Could you hear like corner advice and all of that stuff when you were in there, or were you just kind of tunnel vision in terms of the fact that you just...
Yeah, it was like mixed emotions. It wasn't just one thing I was thinking about. I was probably overthinking a lot of things. If he gets me to the ground, once if he... tries to submit me, but then before you know it, he's already caught me with an uppercut. So it was just a lot to take in, and you know, this is just experience. You just learn from it, and you just got to take those losses and keep coming back. I'm not in this, you know, like we've talked about before. I wasn't in the sport to have a quick fix. You know, I was in it for the long run already. So I just knew I had to pick myself up and get back to the gym and keep training, because it showed in that fight that I wasn't experienced and skilled enough. So I kind of just wanted to make sure that when I do train and do get ready for fights, I kind of prepare the best I can and kind of put everything into it, and not just kind of do it half-heartedly. And that's just from learning how to train properly. And then I kind of just saw what Dan and Rod and what they were doing in their training camps, and then kind of just was a shadow of what they were doing. And then I would always
that specific point of time, if you could just elaborate on that just a little bit about how to train properly, like what was your idea of training properly at that point of time?
Well, just like more circuit training and all that kind of stuff, being as fit as you can. But you know, that's not going to get you better, and that's not going to win you fights. It's actually the skill and the martial arts is what's going to make you a better fighter. So it was more just focusing on actually you know, drilling and getting more rounds in, and just more reps was a big thing back then. And that I still have that philosophy today. You know, in training, we are fit and we are doing a lot of conditioning, but you know, every day we're working on skill-based techniques. Because end of the day, you know, doing a deadlift or a squat isn't gonna transfer into a fight. It's the punching or drilling jiu-jitsu or wrestling that you're gonna see in the fight. So
so you're pretty much banging on sort of your technical experience and sort of like the sort of muscle memory you get from drilling in terms of technique, because like with the conditioning, that factor is more of a supplementary factor where it's supposed to aid like your ability to execute like a technique in a more effective fashion. Would you say that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I would definitely say that. And also it's if you're winning fights by being, you know, the aggressor, size,
temporary stuff.
Yeah, these are all temporary stuff. But if you're winning fights by skill, you know, good, being patient, showing these, you know, things that you need to be able to do later on in your career. You can work on those things, like those other things that are short and temporary, like you know, you're more conditioned and stuff like that. That stuff you can keep working on, but the skill base, that's the foundation of what you want to be doing. And I kind of knew that already. But I was stubborn back then, because I was like, nah, I want to just be as fit as I can be. You know, I don't want to do drill technique. It's boring. That's
a funny one, eh? Because like, I mean, like. Also at the time, like in terms of your work rate, in terms of like the volume of training and hours you were putting in at that time, right? Did you feel like at the time that you were putting in a lot more hours than you might possibly be doing now in terms of from a standpoint of overtraining?
Oh, definitely. Back then we didn't know how to train, so we were thinking just volume and more is better. We would train like 5 hours in one day. I remember we'd go to, you know, 9 a.m. class, which would do sprints. 10 a.m. would do technique class, but would go live. 12 o'clock I'd go down to Ludus Magnus with Rod, and do like a massive hour circuit training. We'll go back to his for lunch, and then we'll do hill sprints again. And then we'll do like an ice bath and like a rubbish bin. I remember putting in emptying out a rubbish bin, like a big one. Throwing in all this cold water and then ice, and just sitting in there. Like, we didn't know if this was working, but we just thought, you know, it looked like it would do something. And
then you were thinking at the same time, right, that, you know, the more you do, the better anyhow, right? Because that is the classic thing, right? Like, the more you put into it, you know, the better you're going to get. But there's so many different elements as you evolve in terms of like that experience as well. One of the things I wanted to touch on as well was one thing I thought was really interesting. So I was watching a fight, and we come to a fight you have with a guy called Caleb, and you're in an octagon, right? And this is the guy that I've only seen once. You did 3 Anthony Pettis kicks off the wall. And you're walking him down and you got your hands up, and I was like, holy shit, I've never seen this guy. What was happening there?
Well, I actually remember that fight quite well. Before it, after the weigh-ins, I got really sick. I couldn't get out of bed the day of the fight. the whole day I was stuck in bed, just real congested. I could hardly breathe.
Yeah.
And then before at the venue, before the fight, I was just under some blankets, just sleeping, just trying to, get some strength for the fight. I remember feeling like shit, but when you sign up for a fight, you can't pull out. You just got to turn up and make it happen. So then, that was kind of. I went into that fight knowing that, like, even though I'm tired and not feeling right, I just had to just pull it together just for 15 minutes. That's how long the fight's going to be. And Caleb, he's, we're good friends now, and he was a good opponent. He's short and stocky, so it's a weird body type for me because I've never had the reach on anyone, and I was taller than him. It was a first. I didn't know what to do with myself, So that's why I was, open up my arms and doing what Dan would usually do and find out, use my frames and stuff. But I kind of just felt it at the time. I was like, okay, I want to do something like, I guess, flashy or cool. And then, I just saw that he was backing up into the cage, and I saw his hands were dropping. So I was like, I might as well just try it. I tried it in the gym a few times.
That's fucking good.
So I was just like, what the hell,
You're fucking good. It wasn't just that. There seemed like there'd been a massive development in terms of, like, the way you were moving in terms of your footwork as well at that point, compared to your earlier fights as well. Like, how you're, like, attacking the body a lot more as well. And, like, just from a technical standpoint, you could see you'd made, like, a significant jump at that point. So it was really interesting to see. And if we now go to the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, was that when you moved over to Thailand? Yeah,
so I was at university after high school, 2011. So I was studying a Bachelor in Arts at Auckland University.
So that's where that bougie shit comes from.
What?
Your Bachelor in Arts.
Mate,
voluptuous.
I lasted one semester. Mate, I didn't get anything out of it besides a big student loan. So I was there for a semester. It was fun. I had a few mates being there. And I was happy that I got accepted into university, and all my family has gone to uni. My dad's a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. My brother's a sports journalist, so my whole family is, a high achiever and academic. So it was something that I always thought that I had to kind of pursue, and I always had pressure on myself, just on myself to kind of live up to that. So when I was at uni and it wasn't really for me, I was at a place where my head wasn't in it. I wanted to train, I wanted to fight. And I wasn't focusing on my exams and stuff. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, was tell my parents that I wanted to drop out of uni, because they knew I was passionate about fighting and mixed martial arts, but they didn't see it as, a career choice or anything like that. No, they've always been really supportive, and they knew that whatever I wanted to kind of commit to, I was always going to do it until I get to where I wanted to be.
Well, you've proven it so far anyway. So.
Well, like back then I wasn't winning all my fights, and I was just kind of going off a dream. So for them, they were like, you got to do it while you can and do it while you're young. So commit to it. So after I dropped out, I changed my degree. I changed to a Bachelor in Sport, and I moved to Unitec. So I did that for one semester, and I still wasn't, it was relative to what I wanted to do, and it was involving fitness and all that side of it, but I still didn't want to do that. I wanted to just kind of focus on fighting and training. So then I saw tryouts that are being advertised over at Tiger Muay Thai in Phuket, Thailand. So I had already had a few fights by then. I was fighting in Legend FC over in Asia. That at one point that was one of the biggest Asia promotions. That it was either ONE FC or Legend FC.
Oh, okay.
So it was a big move for me. A big step for me to fly overseas to fight now. I've never done that, and just to kind of deal with the travel and then the weight cutting overseas, not being with
climate, food,
your comforts of home and all that, not having friends and family around you, and being in a foreign hotel with in a third world country,
communication barriers,
exactly,
a bunch of things,
exactly. So I had to deal with that from a young age, but it was all a great experience, and you just learn from it. So then at that point, I was, I think I've had about 6 or 7 fights. I was mixed record, like 5-2 or something like that.
Mostly decisions though. I mean, like it was, like with a lot of them as well, like you were fighting real vets.
Yeah,
That was the thing. Like these are real vets of the sport.
Yeah.
Who've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not an easy thing to do in those early years.
No.
And one of the things I was interested about was also when I was watching those Tiger Muay Thai tryouts, right? So for those who don't know, the Tiger Muay Thai tryouts is like this. Is it 3 days?
So I think it was 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
It's a 2-day experience where it's a tryout where they put you through basically a bunch of challenges to see whether you've got the sort of qualities that they want to fit their teams, where you get to train. Is it for like a whole year where you get to train?
Yeah. So what they're offering is accommodation, food, training, and just exposure for like a 1 year.
So you basically train with some more high-level teammates and high-level coaches in terms of stand-up and MMA.
Yeah, and you just get to focus on fighting. So whatever you got going on outside of fighting and all that, you can just drop it, come over to Thailand, embrace the lifestyle. Muay Thai is their national sport, so you just kind of learn from all the Thais, and they have a lot of Americans that are good wrestlers.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just like a breeding ground for up and coming fighters. Yeah.
And with that being the case, I mean, you are going through the first day where they're putting you through like an extensive pad session where you got Thai fighters hitting a lot of people back.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like a grueling wrestling session after that and jiu-jitsu session. And what I wanted to talk to you about is, a lot of people are mentally getting broken down by this type of stuff because they really fucking kill you when they do that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to see what you're made of. You get to the last day and you guys go to the beach, you go swim, and then you come back, and then they do a surprise test for you where you have to run up a hill.
Yeah.
Now, they gave like the heavier guys a head start, and what was like the distance of that hill that you guys were running? How long was that run? Like,
so there was about 5 kilometers, but it's not.
Yeah, it's just completely.
It's pretty steep.
So. You're just running for 5 kilometers completely uphill.
Yeah,
and you still came second. And I wanted to ask, between you and the guy that came first, how much of a head start did that guy get?
Oh, he had a pretty big head start, but the thing with him, he knew he'd already done this track a few times. He'd run it maybe 5 times.
Oh, okay.
So for me, it was my first time ever doing it. So I didn't know how to run it, when to pick up speed, when to pull back. So I just kind of had to just make it happen. One thing that saved me, I came to Thailand 3 weeks before that tryout, so that I acclimatized before that run. But a lot of guys were coming from America, overseas. They were coming like a day or 2 days before the actual tryout. So, they didn't know what the hell was going on. Their bodies were just rejecting them, and they were cramping up so bad. I remember guys, just falling apart in the tryouts. After the first session, they had wrote themselves off already. So, I was glad that I went there a bit early, and I got to get familiar with the coaches and
so the environment.
Exactly, yeah. But the thing is, this was the first time they ever did the tryouts, so we didn't have a blueprint of what to go off. So we didn't know what to expect. I was just going over there, treating it like a fight camp, knowing that whatever happened, I would just work hard, and I might not be, the strongest, most talented, fittest in the room, but I'd know I'd work my butt off to get to and the coaches saw that and saw how hungry I was. I was only 18 at this point. So we did we did that run, came second. The first person that got up Big Buddha was guaranteed a spot on the team. So there was only 4 spots now. So I ended up being one of the guys picked.
But you were the only one. You were the only one that they unanimously all agreed on in terms of like the person that that they agreed deserved a spot on the team. Obviously, one won it from the hill, but you were the one where everyone believed that you deserved to be there, and that must be gratifying to know that they could see that at that point, right?
Yeah, no, it was a special moment just because I'd worked so hard to even just get to Thailand. I didn't have much money when you're a uni student.
How much were you, did you just have like a bunch of savings from uni that you'd just taken over and you were living off that, was it?
Well, back then I had a little bit of support from my family. I was selling T-shirts. I'd made some money. I remember at high school I made a clothing brand that I had with my friend. He was a graphic designer, and I was more of the marketing guy. So I'd go out and get the t-shirts and then would screen print them and then would flip them off to our friends, and we made a bit of money off that. So that kind of.
So you had a bit of a side hustle going over there.
I was always into that, yeah. Like I remember in high school, I'd always go to the Mad Butcher and buy like the cheap lollies and drinks. Like there was always like Red Bull drinks and stuff, and then I would.
And then you'd sell it for like a $2 coin,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So you buy bulk and then you sell it for. Yeah,
at school, I'd always be the guy that everyone come to if they wanted something. Especially like if it was a hot day, I'd always have like a cooler of like drinks or something and like a bag. So I'd always like was ambitious in that side of things, and I wasn't making much money from fighting at all. Like even to get paid from fighting, it was pretty foreign to me.
Yeah.
I managed to just get enough to get like a cheap fan room in Thailand. I was living pretty rough. Like if you ever slept in a fan room in Thailand, it sucks.
Well, I can't imagine that because like I've never been to Thailand, but I've been to Bali, and it's similar in terms of like the climate and temperature, and it's just hot and humid. Yeah. Your body's sweating everywhere, bro. You can't take a regular shit for anything,
Yeah, exactly. Like the good thing about over there, the cost of living so cheap. So like the food is really cheap.
Yeah.
Where I was staying, it was down like this back alley, and it was pretty dingy, and like you go in the room, and it's just a fan.
You buy all the sex parlors, bro, in Thailand.
I was in the Phuket area, so there wasn't really. Patong is like the party area, so that's about 20 minutes away. So I was in the fitness area. So Chalong is what it's called, the area. On this one street, it's pretty unique because it's like a fitness hub. So like there's a Muay Thai gyms, MMA gyms, yoga retreats, weight loss gyms, CrossFit, and all the restaurants and supplement shops are all catered to fighting and fitness. So it's not just heaps of like tatted up fighters all just training there. It's any walk of life that just kind of want to better themselves.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool that you can be there and just kind of hone into what you want to achieve. So if you want to lose weight or get fit or learn how to fight and take and really embrace the lifestyle, it's a great place to be, and that's why I stayed there for so long. So I was living there.
And it's got everything you need as well, because I mean,
exactly,
you got the facilities, you got the training staff, you've also got the fact that because it's so cheap for everything over there, in terms of recovery as well, it's really useful because you can get cheap massages as well to like recover your body as well, and then any type of supplements and any of that stuff. Yeah. It's the perfect environment from that standpoint.
Oh, exactly. Especially as an up and coming fighter, didn't have much money, but I love the lifestyle and I love training. So at that point, when I won the scholarship, I came back home for a month just to prepare myself to go back over, say goodbye to friends and family, pack up all my stuff. And pretty much took a one-way ticket. So I was living over there, setting up my own fights. So I didn't have a manager or anything like that. It was just through networking, meeting people at the gym, they are asking if I wanted to fight on these shows, and that's kind of how I picked up more fights just by.
So that you wouldn't have like a liaison to go through. Like it was basically they would just approach you directly.
Exactly. Social media, just message promoters. I was just actively getting my own fights.
And in Thailand, I noticed that like where you weren't just like, you were doing a lot of kickboxing and you were doing a lot of boxing as well at that time as well.
Yeah, just everything. I was just trying to compete as much as I can, just trying to get as much experience.
See? And this is something that a lot of people like in the other part of the hemisphere don't see a lot in terms of people that are really active in terms of fighting, because they don't envision that as something that's possible to do.
Yeah.
Like when you see Kiwi guys that are so fucking active, like you're not just doing fucking MMA, you're doing kickboxing and you're doing boxing as well, and you've got a pretty active schedule, right? You redefine the word active in the standpoint that, you're not just fighting like 3 times a year or 4 times a year.
I was fighting at least once a week.
Exactly. It's fucking great. But I mean, it's had its benefits, like especially like after you were training at Thailand, right? I mean, like I saw like some of the fights you did in Korea as well. Like, was that Korea?
No, so Korea's one of the places I haven't fought in Asia. So,
but you were fighting a Korean guy.
Yeah, so that was in Taiwan.
Oh, Taiwan was it? Yeah. And there was another shift in terms of like the way you moved, like in terms of like your footwork, had just become so fluid, and like everything you were doing was like, you know, like a whole lot more measured. Like it was
efficient.
Like it was like the next point of your evolution as a fighter, and it was really impressive to see at that point.
Yeah, well, I was fighting so much. At one point, I fought in 9 different countries in 9 months. So every month I would leave the country just because in Thailand I didn't have like a year-long visa. I was only getting 2 to 3 month visas at a time. So I had to leave pretty much every month to kind of renew it, because every time you come back in the border, you get another 30 days.
So your segue to that was to take a fight up.
Yeah. So injured or not, I was fighting. So like I was like, I got to leave, otherwise I'm going to get charged overstay fees, and you know, I didn't have much money back then. So I was like, I've just got to make it work. And this is when Dan was cornering me when he came over. So you know, I fought in some crazy places. Great experience. Didn't win them all, but you know, I love the experience and love being able to fly over to all these different countries and get paid for it. That was, you know, so that was my dream always, to be able to travel and do what I love, which is fighting. So I fought in the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia. Fighting in Thailand was crazy. China, Indonesia, Japan, Guam, Australia. So
do you get a chance to sink that all in though, in terms of appreciate like the different sort of locales that you're at, or is it difficult to do so because you are focused on the fight at hand?
Yeah, like I've always known that I'm not here on holiday. I'm there to fight. And one thing that I've always been good at is just kind of blocking everything out and then just being one track minded, and that's what I'm committing to. After the fight, you know, sometimes I had a few days after that I could enjoy the country and embrace the lifestyle, eat some local food. Obviously, you're not going to be doing that on fight week, just because you don't want to. You got to lose weight and you don't want to eat anything dodgy as well. So yeah, it was cool experience fighting on. I remember being part of the first ever cruise ship fight night. So I was fighting on a cruise ship that came from Malaysia to Phuket. Overnight, the fights were on the boat, but it was docked. It was docked at a port, so it wasn't moving. So when people, you know, were asking, you know, was it rocking and all that, it wasn't moving. So all my teammates from Tiger got to come on the boat and watch me fight. And lucky enough, the fight was only 12 seconds against a Filipino, and it was a good knockout. I remember 2 weeks before that, I fought in Taiwan, the fight you were talking about. And that's where I got a 12-second knockout.
The head kick, right?
Nah. So that was my first time in Taiwan. Sorry.
Yeah, that was okay. The second time.
The second time was back in Taiwan, and that's when I got a 12-second knockout. 9-second knockout. Sorry, 9-second. Yeah, so that's pretty much the first punch. But that second time I fought in Taiwan, I was coming off a 3-fight lose streak, and this was all at bantamweight. And I was fighting really good, like legit guys. I remember fighting Gustavo Falcaroli. He was a black belt from Australia.
That's tiring for me when I look at like the Gustavo fights, because you fought him 3 times, is it?
Twice, yeah. Twice. One was a no contest.
Yeah.
Because I fell out of the ring in Melbourne.
Yeah, I saw that one.
And the second fight was in a cage, and he caught me in a Bravo choke. You know, he was a lot more experienced than me, and it was a fight that, you know, it was always going to be a hard fight for me.
Pisses me off though, watching those fights.
Like, I would love to fight. I'd love to fight him now, you know, just because I'm a lot more experienced.
Exactly, but like just the whole, you know, situation, like, because like obviously, you know,
I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy personally.
Yeah, like because he's got a very intense personality in terms of like the sort of characteristics he's trying to put on for the show. Yeah, and I didn't like that. But I mean, so you only got to fight him twice. Man, Sherdog's got to really update your record, bro.
It is on there twice, isn't it?
They got it 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or so maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. But.
Well, I fought him and then I lost. And then I fought on this big show in Malaysia against Mark Striegel. At the time, he was undefeated.
He was a Filipino guy. Yeah.
And he'd beaten Ev, and he was a lot bigger than me. Taking this fight at bantamweight, I knew he was going to be a lot bigger. Just kind of mentally blocked myself in that fight, since it was my first kind of main event. And he was a lot bigger, and I just wasn't thinking clearly about the game plan. You know, I should have been more critical with the takedown defense, and I let him kind of get underneath me, and then he got the rear naked choke. Yeah. So that was a hard fight to to take. And
Are those more difficult for you from the standpoint that you do put a lot of work into your preparation, and then when the finishes like that in terms of a loss come quickly, is it harder to take in just because of like the amount of work that goes into it?
Yeah, exactly. You want to showcase your whole skill set and show what you've been working on, and it sucks when it's always a quick finish like that. But then after that, I had just trained a lot more and just got back into the gym straight away. I wasn't really injured after that fight, so I just went back to the gym, and I was still in Thailand. After that, I fought in China, and I lost to a good Chinese guy over there. I thought I won a decision, but I lost by split.
Yeah, there's been a few of those though, where like I've wondered in terms of the interpretation that judges take, and I think a large part of it as well. And I don't know whether this is something that's exclusive to America, in terms of the fact that you have people that don't compete in the sport that make decisions for people that do compete in the sport, which is mind blowing for me from the standpoint that if you've never done it yourself, how can you make a sound decision when you don't know all the variables involved?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it in Asia is, if you're fighting in their hometown, you got to expect if it's going to the judges, if you're not winning, decisively, they're going to give it to the other guy. And I knew that. So in China, especially, these guys are going to give it to their hometown guys every time. And it was a tough pill to swallow because I thought I'd won that fight. Now being on a 3-fight lose streak, it was a pretty rough time just because I didn't really know what to do. I was at a crossroad of like, should I go back to New Zealand? Should I stay in Thailand? I was running out of money. I had the pressure of my family telling me to kind of come back and go back to university. So there was a lot of things that I had to think about, and I had to make a decision what I wanted to do.
And so let's talk about that for a quick moment then, because this is important for a lot of people from the standpoint that if you're really passionate about doing something, no doubt you are going to have people at some point that are going to want to influence your decisions. And sometimes it's because they're coming from the best place in terms of they care about you and they want what's best for you. But you've got one life. And with that one life, it's important to do the thing that you really want to do and commit your life to. So regardless of what people are saying in terms of, even if they're looking out for your best interest, how do you keep that conviction in terms of following what you want to do?
I kind of gave myself a promise. I said, I got myself into the situation and I'm going to get myself out of it. So I was like, I'm just going to train for 4 months. Not fight, not take any fights, just solely focus on training, trying to get better, and kind of have one more kind of crack at it. And this is when I made this decision to drop down to flyweight.
Oh, okay.
So at this point, I was fighting at 61, and I was going to drop down to 57 to fight, just for my size, and I wouldn't have that disadvantage anymore. So just committed to the process and kind of just stayed consistent, even though I wasn't making much money. I just kind of had to make it work. And that's when I was fighting boxing as well. Just to kind of get some money going, just to kind of pay for my living cost in Thailand. Because even though things were paid for and stuff, it still costs to live over in another country. So just trained. And then after 4 months, that's when I got my fight in Taiwan, where I fought that Korean. And that's why it was pretty satisfying getting a 9-second knockout, just because I'd worked so hard just to even stay in the sport and just to kind of commit myself to living still overseas. That's when 2 weeks after that, when I fought on the cruise ship, I got a 12-second knockout. I think a month after that, I fought in Guam and I got a 30-second knockout. And then I fought another 2 times. I think it was back in Guam and then in China, where I got another 2 first-round knockouts. And now I was on a 5-fight win streak. So in the space of like 5 months, I completely changed my whole career path. Of where my career was heading. And that's when I got picked up for the Ultimate Fighter. So they saw that I was on a win streak, and they were all at flyweight, and I was making moves in Asia. And I got picked up for the Ultimate Fighter, where I went over for the tryout. So at this point, it was an invitation only tryout. So you had to be invited to participate. There's 30 of us that got flown over from all around the world, all different countries. So this tryout was more of an interview. So they wanted to hear your background. just kind of see what kind of personality you have, or what kind of fight style you have, and all that. And they like my story, and they like me. So I ended up getting picked for the Ultimate Fighter. So I went back home for about a month, back to Thailand, and then they said get ready for the show because you're going in. So then I flew out a month later. In between that, I was lucky enough that Dan's wedding was around that time, so I got to go to his wedding before I went to the Ultimate Fighter. I couldn't really eat anything and enjoy myself fully because I was still in fight camp.
But you're still feeling on cloud nine because I figured that must have been a pivotal moment from the standpoint that as a person that knew from such a young age that they wanted to be fighting in this premier league.
Yeah.
In terms of the Ultimate Fighter and getting that call at that point of time, right?
Yeah.
It must have been something special.
Yeah, it was a massive achievement just because from what I've come from, and a few months ago, being on a 3-fight lose streak and being told, maybe it's not for you, come back home and come back to your comforts of home and go back to uni. And I was like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to commit to, and I'm going to get myself out of it. So to now be part of the Ultimate Fighter, but I couldn't tell anyone because everything has to be under wraps until it gets aired on TV. At this point, it was all just speculation. Is he a part of it? But so when I went to the Ultimate Fighter, flew out to Las Vegas. That trip in itself was a headache. So I flew.
It's like a fucking 12-hour flight from Thailand, is it? Or were you flying from New Zealand? Or
no, I was flying from Thailand. But this is the thing. So I had my flights booked. I was on my way to the airport. I get to the airport. I think it was midnight, and they said the flight's delayed to. I think I was flying to Shanghai. They said the flight's delayed. You're flying in the morning now. So they take me home. They take me back to a hotel where they put me up in. On the way to the hotel, I fall asleep on the bus. I was knackered because I'm weight cutting all at this time.
Yeah.
I fall asleep on the bus, and then I wake up. No one's on the bus, and I'm the only one there. And the guy's driving off, and I'm like, I wake up, walk down the aisle, and tap on the driver's door, shoulder, and then he looks at me. I scared him, and he's like, "What are you still doing on the bus?" He couldn't speak English, but he's like, "Why you not get off?" And I was like, "I fall asleep," and he's like, "You pay me like $50 New Zealand." I was like, "Are you crazy?" And he's like, "You have to pay me, otherwise I'm not gonna stop." And I was like, "Whatever, bro, just take it." And then we were only 5 minutes away from where the hotel was.
Oh, get the fuck out of here!
I know, right? Just scanned me.
The hustle game.
It was a shit start to the trip.
Yeah.
So then anyway, in the morning, get on the bus, make my flight to Shanghai. Since the flight was delayed from the night before, we've missed our next flight. So a connecting flight to Seattle, we've missed. The connecting flight to Seattle, I've missed, and they've lost my luggage.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, they've lost my bag. There's about 50 flights that they've said they've lost their luggage. And being in China,
you're already delayed. You fucking lost your luggage. Now you don't know how long you're going to be held up there.
So they said you're going to stay here overnight. So I'm trying to find out where do I catch a bus to go to my hotel.
Yeah.
It took me about 4 hours to find out where I'm actually going.
No.
So at this point, I'm walking around because I had to take my belt because part of being on the Ultimate Fighter, you had to be a championship belt. Yeah. So I had that as carry-on. So I'm walking around Shanghai airport with my belt,
like
starving.
a big dick motherfucker with your belt, but you're fucking.
I'm starving because I'm not eating much, because I potentially could be fighting next week, so I don't know if I am. So I'm like, I'm just going off, I probably am fighting, so I just have to stay on my weight cut. And then eventually I find out where what bus to catch to go to the hotel. The next morning, miraculously, my bag has made it. I find my bag. I get on my flight to Seattle, and then I get the connecting flight to Las Vegas. So I was on like a 30-hour transit. It was crazy, but I got there, and then I just had to let it all go and not let it get to me. I finally got to my destination. So when you arrive in Vegas, they take your phone off you. So you have no contact with the outside world. So no TV, no music, no cell phone, no internet. So no one knows you're here besides your parents, And I had to tell my parents, you can't tell anyone that I'm here.
Yeah.
just don't worry about me because I'll be cut off from the outside world for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
So you go pretty much straight into the Ultimate Fighter. Well, you spend one day in your hotel. They put you up in a hotel, and then the next day they pick you up, and then you go straight into the Ultimate Fighter. Meet Dana White, go into the UFC gym, the tough gym where I've been watching this for so long. This is the 24th season, so this has been running for so long. So to be like in the four walls where champions have made, Dana White's right in front of me, giving me my speech about how he wants to see exciting fights for this season, how we want to showcase how the flyweights can put on exciting fights and get finishes, and you're here to win a contract, and we've got 16 other guys here that are here for the same thing that I am. So it was a pretty surreal moment.
And the biggest thing about that separates it from the other Ultimate Fighters was from the opportunity at the end, which is the fact that unlike any other Ultimate Fighter where people are guaranteed like UFC contracts with a certain amount, you get to fight Demetrius Johnson, who is the champion. So not only is it about you cracking into the UFC, you actually get to fight for the fucking title. Talk about like a jump.
Pretty much. Yeah, it was pretty crazy to kind of wrap my head around. I could be fighting for the title in a few fights, like pretty much jumping straight into the lion's den. So it was something that I wasn't overthinking. I was just going to take it fight by fight. No one really knew who I was. Being in America, they're quite naive.
I think they were calling you Cobra Kai, right?
They had a lot of nicknames, but
I mean, like for yourself as well, like because you're staying in that mansion, you're staying with all those other fighters. For the most part, you kept to yourself, was it?
Yeah, like I had a few good friends in there that you grow a bond with. Just being in that situation, we're all in the same boat, so you naturally gravitate to people, and personalities start to clash as well because we're not all from the same background, and people start to especially when they're coming off, if they lose in their fights, they're not going to be happy to be there, because if you lose, you can't leave the house. You got to stay in the mansion for 7 weeks. So I got a knockout in the first round.
Against Terrence Mitchell, that's right.
So I got a 30-second knockout right in front of Dana White on the first day of the Ultimate Fighter, which was pretty surreal for me just because
he was excited.
No one knew who I was. No one knew what to expect. They kind of were overlooking me just because they didn't know who I was.
And they weren't giving you your dues at that point. And I know that a lot of people at the time thought that Terrence Mitchell was going to win that because of the fact that he was like 5'10" and he had a ridiculously long reach for the flyweight division. So they thought just because he had these attributes that makes a fighter. But the one thing that they all forgot about was the fact that you've been in this game for a very long fucking time. And it's not like you haven't fought people with those things before.
Exactly. I've always fought guys that have had the longer reach, longer body type than me. So I was something that I was used to, and I just had to find my range and find my rhythm, and that's what I did straight away pretty much. When he landed his jab, that helped me out because I knew my distance now, where I was safe, where I wasn't. And once I clipped him with my first overhand right, I kind of knew that if I keep swarming, I'll eventually catch him and put him out. So I just went with my gut instinct, and it worked out, and ended up getting that knockout.
What an amazing feeling!
Got Dana White off his feet, and he was clapping, and it was pretty awesome.
I remember I was watching that, and Dana was going. He was like, and they say flyweights don't knock people out. They say flyweights aren't exciting. And here we got a guy who's just knocked someone out in 30 seconds. Yeah, it was amazing feeling, and everyone was kind of counting me out just because I'm from New Zealand. We have this mentality where we're humble in our approach to things, and we don't need to be overly confident about ourselves. We can be, we know what we're about, and we know what we can do, and we kind of let our work do the talking. And I've always grown up being able to do that, and I think it's from just my upbringing and with my family that we're what's the word? Just our whole mentality. Talk shit, just do it.
Exactly, yeah. So when I got the knockout, people were like, okay, he's exactly, yeah. He's here to be a contender for this. So it definitely put a lot of eyes on me. And after the fight, everyone was like, yeah, you should be feeling good. And I was just chilling in the pool, lying on one of the blow up beds and just relaxing, because I knew like I'd at least set set the scene that I was here to potentially win this thing.
And they know who you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's you can't deny that.
Yeah. Well, my experiences in Thailand and what I've just come from definitely prepared me for those kind of moments where you're in this house by yourself. You don't have any comforts of home. You don't have your coaches, your teammates, anything like that. You can't call your girlfriend or your mum, nothing
it's
like that.
It's a very isolating experience.
Exactly. So you just got to make do with what you got. Everyone's in that same situation. So it's not who's the better fighter. It's just who can put it together on that day. So that was kind of my philosophy going into that Ultimate Fighter. I ended up losing in the semi-finals against Alexander Pantoja.
That was a bit controversial as well.
It should have gone to the third round.
Yeah, it definitely should have gone to a third round because in the first round you won that first round, and then in the second round, what are you looking at from that point? Are you looking at ground control, or are you looking at the fact that you seem to have landed more volume in that second round as well? And I know that, especially for a lot of people watching from the outside that don't have an understanding of fighting as well, they look at certain elements in terms of, does the guy look hurt? Does it look like, he's being impacted by those punches? But they don't look at whether the other guy's actually connecting. They don't look at the intangibles. Like, if he does take someone down, is he actually holding someone there? Because he took you down a couple of times, but you scrambled right back up. So are they really takedowns?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was one of those things that it was all subjective. You could have scored it either way. It didn't go my way, but that's the fight game, and I was still going to be in the house for another 2 weeks, I think. So I was just gonna treat it like a fight camp and just be a sponge and absorb as much as I could, because my coach was Henry Cejudo, the current flyweight and bantamweight champion, and he's an Olympic gold medalist. So. There's so much to learn off the guy, and that's what I wanted to do. Have there been a
couple of things? Yeah. Have there been a couple of significant things that you've learned from Cejudo that you still apply today in terms of the way you train certain things?
I remember the difference between his coaching approach and then Benavidez's coaching approach.
Yeah.
He always told the guys to keep coming. He always made it more of a routine and just getting us in that right mindset of turning up on time, putting an hour or 2 hours into the training. And then after that, you can joke around and stuff. On the Benavidez coaching team, they would, they didn't have to come to training. After their fights or after they lost, they could do whatever. They could work out in the gym by themselves. So there wasn't any structure.
Yeah.
The guys that wanted to learn, they could, but in Henry Cejudo's team, you had to learn, there wasn't, you can take today off and just
and
stay
that's a very
home.
wrestler's mentality in terms of the fact that you have to be disciplined, and regardless of win and lose as well, you still have to put the repetitions in.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we can still get a contract even if we lost our fight.
Yeah.
There's a finale that they put on, after the Ultimate Fight has been aired, and not just the winner gets the contract. There's a few, 4 or 5 guys will end up getting a contract. So you just got to keep that in mind and keep striving to get better.
Well, that's what the UFC is about at the end of the day, because it's not always about, being the most successful fighter from like a win-lose standpoint. It's about, are you an exciting person to watch, and do you capture the audience? Those are very important factors as well.
Exactly.
And it leads me to, the current saga that we're in, which is, you with City Kickboxing. How did you link up with Eugene Behrman? How did that happen?
So after the Ultimate Fighter, after I didn't get picked up for the UFC, I didn't get on the finale. I thought I would have done enough, being the only knockout of the season. I didn't get picked up, and then I ended up signing with Risen in Japan for a 1-fight deal. Took the fight in end of 2016. I did my whole training camp out of Phuket, Thailand. At Tiger Muay Thai, and ended up losing a decision. So that was quite detrimental to my career, just because I had a lot of expectations of coming off the Ultimate Fighter. People thought, I was the next big thing, and I ended up losing. And it was a tough pill to swallow, just because I'd worked hard to kind of build up all this hype around myself, and to not follow through with a performance that was expected of me.
Yeah.
It was something that I had to kind of look at myself, and my whole family flew out to Japan as well. And that was awesome. It was a great experience having all my siblings, because I've got 3 older brothers, 1 older sister, and my dad flew out there as well. My older brother lives in Japan, so he's lived there for about 10 years. So he was there being our tour guide. So I got to hang out after the fight for about 2 weeks, being on holiday. But holiday's fun and it was cool. But at the end of the day, I did lose my fight. So after that holiday, I came back to New Zealand and I had to make the choice: do I go back to Thailand and train, or do I stay in New Zealand? One thing I realized, I wasn't actually getting better in Thailand. I hit a plateau where I was too comfortable in my routine.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting the attention that I needed from my coaches to progress in my career. So that's what gave me the idea of coming back to New Zealand and then going back to, I wasn't going to go back to Strikeforce because there wasn't anyone left at the gym. And I was going to follow where Dan had gone to, and that was at City Kickboxing with Eugene Behrman. So I knew that Israel was already training there. He trained there from, day one.
Had you had a relationship with Israel at that point? Or
yeah, I'd met him in Thailand a few times.
Okay.
We were friends, but we weren't, close.
Yeah.
And then with Eugene, I've known him for a little while just because he'd come into Strikeforce and help out Dan for his fights. So I'd met him a few times, and we weren't, too close, but he always welcomed me and with open arms and said, if you ever need a place to train, you're always welcome to come to City Kickboxing. So I kind of just jumped back into their schedule, and it kind of just stuck with me. I liked the vibe there. Everyone was very, very welcoming. There was no egos. There was no one trying to injure you in training. And I love that system that they have, that they've created from their lineage from boxing, from Balmoral Liga, that they've turned into their own system by involving it into MMA aspects, where I love, because I was learning so much just from coming to the gym, seeing different styles, and then I was evolving as a fighter. So that's what I loved about the system that they had going, and I was just loving the process of learning. I felt like I was a beginner again and learning how to walk. I didn't get picked up after the Ultimate Fighter. I was coming off a loss, so I came back to Eugene. I said, what do we have to do to get me back in the UFC? So he said, just keep training, trust the system, and we'll get you back in the UFC.
And that's a dangerous recipe for success. If there's one thing that I'd recommend to anyone that's, wanting to get into fighting, right? As a fighter, you have to have those intangible qualities of commitment and consistency to your craft, but you do require someone who is going to be able to utilize that commitment and consistency and effort in the most efficient way possible, which is about taking someone who can train hard and put them in a smart system where you're maximizing what they can do. And that's what makes Eugene like a genius. Yeah,
you've definitely done your homework. Yeah, that's exactly what he does. He makes you accountable for your actions, You in Thailand, I didn't have that. That's why I was kind of falling behind a little bit, because there wasn't anyone being on my case every day. Where are you? Are you doing your drills? Are you doing your technique classes? On the weekends I would just go off and be on holiday because everyone else was in Thailand, because it's a holiday destination.
Exactly.
So coming back to New Zealand, I realized, I got to actually work. I got to treat this like a job. And this isn't for everyone, and that's why everyone can't do it. And I just can't take it for granted like that. So that was my mentality. I've just got to treat it like a job and trust the system and listen to pretty much everything Eugene's saying, because he is the glue that's going to put it all together and make it work. So after training at City Kickboxing for about 3 months, I had a fight lined up on Hex in Melbourne. And that's where I got my knockout of Rodolfo Marquez. I took that fight on a week and a half notice. We took it at a catch weight. It was a lot bigger. We took it at 63. I'd been fighting most of my fights at flyweight, so to take a fight and give a weight advantage up like that, he was cutting from about 73, I think. Ooh. So he cut 10 kgs in like 2 weeks. So I knew he was going to be bigger, going to be stronger, but I kind of just had to weather the storm, break him down, break his body down. And first and second round, it was close. Like it could have gone either way. Third round, I knew he was getting tired, and that was our game plan. That's why we took this fight, because we knew you can't do too much in 2 weeks. If you're fit, it's gonna show in the fight. If you're not, you're gonna gas out eventually. So he couldn't get me down. He couldn't keep me down. So I knew I just had to keep putting the pressure on, keep going into the body, and eventually I came up for overhand. I knocked him out clean. Got a walk away knockout. So it was pretty satisfying knowing that I'd given up all these advantages, but we still got the win. And this was all from Eugene. You know, I just listened to what he said.
You're right with Eugene. It's a matter of accepting his processes, but it's such an intelligent approach. For the fact that you got all these fighters, right? You got these fighters here, and you got so many people that I didn't know this was the norm for a lot of fighters, right? Where they go into like a training camp, and after the training camp, they just dwindle off in terms of the fact that like some of them might train 3-4 days a week, or even less than that, right? As opposed to, a lot of these fighters out of city kickboxing were training 6 days a week consistently all throughout the year, 52 weeks in a year.
Exactly.
They're training 6 days a week, whether they're fighting or not, which means that when it comes to unexpected situations, right, they're miles ahead of everyone else in terms of the fact that they've got a routine, they're disciplined, and they're not out of shape.
They're not coming off the couch.
They're not fighting. They're not out of tune. That's a major difference.
Yeah,
there,
exactly. So then, after the Melbourne fight, I fought 2 weeks or 3 weeks after in China. Ended up getting another knock. I got a first round knockout, and then I got another win 2 weeks after that, and back in China by decision. So I was trying to rally a few wins because I knew the UFC were coming back to Auckland, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I was on a 3-fight win streak. So I was campaigning for the Auckland card. I didn't get on it, unfortunately, and that left a bit of taste in my mouth because I wanted to be a part of that. That's always been my dream.
That would fuck you off, bro.
Especially being
you being on the Ultimate Fighter, you got a knockout there. There's a UFC fight happening.
I'm on a 3-fight win streak now. Yeah, I thought I'd done enough, and so I didn't get the call up, and then it took another year for me to. So it took 2 years after the Ultimate Fighter for me to get picked up in the UFC.
Yeah.
So I was on a 5-fight win streak now. I'd fought 2 more times in China, fighting good guys. These guys are. When you fight in China, you don't know who you're really fighting. And they were trying to set me up against their best guys. So I wasn't
taking... You don't know what they're taking.
Yeah. So I didn't know what to expect, but I knew who the opponent was. I trust our system enough, and I trust in Eugene that I knew I could just make it work and get the win somehow. Either way, I'd get the win. So now I was on a 5-fight win streak. I didn't get a call up straight away. It took until I think Israel and Eugene were over in America for one of the UFC events, and then they had a talking with Dana saying, you need to get one of our teammate in the UFC.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until it
was the end of 2018, basically.
Yeah, end of 2018 where I didn't know about this. So I'd been talked about, you're going to get a contract, just wait. But it's like, how long do I have to wait? I've been waiting 2 years now. Is it ever going to happen?
And you're in this flux as well, because I remember at that point, that was the first time that I'd heard about you, where you were in the state where, like, you were staying on.
Yeah, I was just at the state ready.
You were going to get that call.
I'd had a few times where, like, they wanted me in the UFC, but it was on a week's notice, and they wanted me to cut the flyweights. And it's like, I want to give my best performance, and how am I expected to do that when I've only got a week to prepare? So we ended up declining a fight against Tim Elliott because it didn't feel right, and I didn't want to put my health at risk to make this weight.
And he's a difficult fella to fight, especially he's a Mongol.
Especially to go in there, with a disadvantage of cutting weight and then having to perform, it's just going to be too much to ask. So we waited it out, and eventually Eugene came back to the gym with a video saying, it's a thank you video for our teammates from Israel and Dan. Yeah. So I get there not thinking of anything of it. Sit down on the mats. Everyone's around us. I see Dana White pop on the screen. He says, "Hey Kai, congratulations, you're in the UFC, bro." And it didn't hit me. I thought, why is this guy saying my name? And it wasn't until everyone started cheering, and then Eugene stood me up and then hugged me, and then you said, "Bro, you're in the UFC." And it wasn't until then it kind of hit me, and I started, tearing up just because I've worked so hard for this, just to get my shot in the UFC. Because being a part of the Ultimate Fighter, you get a taste of the UFC, but you're not a UFC fighter. So it wasn't until that moment that I actually achieved my goal of being in the UFC. But then I realized, I've got to actually fight now. So that's when I had my debut, December 1st in Adelaide. It couldn't have worked out any better, having my friends and family all fly over to Adelaide. I had about 50 of them fly over. Being on a stacked card with so many vets, Mark Hunt's last fight, Tai Tuivasa, Tyson
Some
Pedro,
Pedro,
having
yeah.
Shogun Hua.
Yeah.
It was a crazy card to be a part of, and to get fight of the night was unreal. For my debut fight, and then to go through a little bit of adversity in the fight as well, getting caught and getting dropped that first round.
I think he was trying to go for a heel hook, was it?
No, it was a triangle.
Oh, triangle.
So he dropped me in the first round, but I still won that round definitely. And then the second round, he caught me in a triangle where he was trying to choke me out. I ended up stacking him on his head. He went for the armbar. I reversed it and it came on top. So I got through a little bit of, there was some hairy moments. It was tight, but I knew if I slammed him on his head, he would let go.
Yeah.
And then ended up, I could have eventually I could have finished that fight definitely, but he was a tough kid, Elias Garcia.
And you don't take unnecessary risks anymore in the sense you and Israel both do this, where you're not hunting for the KO in the same sense that you're looking for the right openings.
Exactly.
It's a very different approach where you don't want to just blow out everything that you prepared for by trying to please the crowd. Like you're trying to do the best thing that you can, but you're trying to do it in the smartest way possible.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be calculated and measured, and that just comes from the system that we use at City Kickboxing and the ideas that Eugene's put in our heads. You want to be the smarter fighter, and you don't want to have that mentality of get hit to give a hit.
Yeah.
You want to give a hit and then evade and not get hit. You want to be leaving there, unscathed. So that's the philosophy I try to follow, and obviously it's working. 7 weeks after that, I had my second fight in the UFC on UFC Melbourne 234 with Israel and Shane. So it was awesome to be a part of a card with all three of us fighting out of the same gym, and all three of us winning. So that was a tough fight, just because I hurt my hand in the first round, pretty much the second punch. I hurt it, but you're not going to stop. You're just going to keep throwing and work around it. Ended up winning by split decision, so it was close, but I thought I'd done enough to get the win. The guy was tough. Paiva, he was 18-1, 12-fight win streak.
He's got a skull on him though.
He's got a hard head. So you could see in my track record that I haven't padded my way to get to where I am now. I fought always tough dudes. A lot of people in Australia, especially, have been calling me out, thinking I'm an easy fight and all this. Is like, bro, you need to get in the UFC first.
Cunts, bro. You got heaps of dumb cunts like that. Though. The thing is, that last fight with Paiva was a very intelligent fight. You took a lot of measures to avoid, getting, unnecessary damage. Obviously, the way you moved, the direction you moved in as well, staying on his lead side as opposed to going in the other direction. And just making sure that, when you did things like the groin kick as well, that you took your time to recover.
Yeah.
And also, securing, crucial takedowns, because at some point, a guy like that, with such a tough head, you have to do other things to let the judges know that, you're still dominating this fight. And you did those things as well. And you came out of it where, you're better for it. You don't have to worry about, unnecessary damage, So, at the end of the day, your health is the most important thing. And if you fight in a way that preserves that, then that's the best you can hope for.
Yeah, exactly. Those are experiences that are going to definitely make you a better fighter and progress you and take you to that next level, especially now being in the top 10 ranked in the UFC flyweight division. They're only going to get harder fights.
Exactly.
So he's just a stepping stone to that next level. So my next fight is 3 weeks away in China, Shenzhen's China. So it'd be nice to go back there.
Familiar territory.
Exactly, yeah. Familiar faces. People will know me over there. And my opponent, he is tough dude. But, we've been working hard on a game plan and that comes from watching a lot of fight footage. Obviously, I don't do it myself, but Eugene and our other coaching staff do that. And I'm feeling really confident in solving the puzzle, and we'll be able to get the job done. And hopefully, fighting on the Melbourne card 5 weeks after is ambitious, but it's
a tough turnaround. But
exactly, yeah. I'm in the sport to make money, and to if I can fight, in Australia close to home after the China fight, that would be a dream. And then eventually, hopefully, the UFC come back to Auckland end of this year. And hopefully all of us boys get on that card as well. That'd be amazing. So exciting times for not just myself, but for New Zealand mixed martial arts.
And there are a lot of monsters coming out of that gym at City Kickboxing that, are just going to shake it up in each division, especially, you know, it's going to be an exciting time at the end of 2019, that's for certain. So obviously you've got to get to sparring soon, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. There's only a couple of questions I want to leave you with to answer, and that's for anyone that really wants to follow their passions and commit to it. What are the key elements that you think you need to be successful?
Just like we said at the start, consistency. If you have a craft or if you're passionate about something, if you just keep working hard towards it, you know, don't look at the bigger picture. Look at it day by day, week by week. But eventually those small goals turn into bigger goals, and eventually you'll get to where you want to be. That's kind of how I've always thought of it. I had a dream, but I knew to get to that dream, I had to, you know, just take it day by day and not look at too much and cloud yourself with too much stuff, because if you do that, you make yourself go crazy, and you'll never get out of that little you'll just end up, you know, running around in circles doing the same thing. So just consistency and working hard, you know, that's never that's something that I've always been installed into me as a young man. Anything I wanted to do, I knew I wasn't going to be the most talented, the strongest, the fittest, the naturally gifted, but I knew if I worked hard at it, I would eventually surpass, you know, those other people that were gifted and stuff. So just work hard at it and keep your head down, you know, even though things aren't working out and going your way. Eventually, you know, the tides do turn, and if you're working hard towards something, things will fall into place. You know, it might take 10 years like it took me to get into the UFC, but, you know, I'm here now, and you don't even think about what you've been through. It makes you a stronger person, and it builds the character that you need to be able to last in the sport and last in this world, and especially, you know, fighting on the world stage in the UFC. I don't take it for granted. It's a lifestyle that is not for everyone, and that's why I work hard, because a lot of people don't like their jobs and don't like what they're doing. But I'm in a position where, you know, I get to wake up and do what I love, which is train and to better myself and become a better person. So yeah, if you're stuck in a slump where you don't know what to do, head down to your local mixed martial arts gym, try it out. You know, you never know what you're made of until you're put under those situations where you can push through adversity, and martial arts has taught me those things and gave me those tools to get myself out of situations and to push through. So yeah, if you're in those situations, pick up some gloves, you know, take out your aggression or frustrations on a bag, and and embrace the lifestyle and start your mixed martial arts journey.
Yeah, man, just fucking do it, you know? Don't be that cunt that just, like, stays at home and, like, fucking does fuck all. Like, because at the end of the day, that's not going to get you anywhere, you know? So if you want to do something worthwhile, you've just got to do something. You know, if you do something, you know, organically shit's going to start, you know, the steps that you need to take to get where you need to take. You'll have the right people around you to get you there as well. But it starts with fucking doing something, you know? And not being a fuckwit. But anyway, Kai, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with your time. And I appreciate that you're doing it, you know, a few weeks out from your fight. I wish you all the best with that.
Thanks, bro.
And I do hope that you do become the top of the top there in the flyweight, because no one deserves it more than you in terms of the journey it's taken to get here and the amount of effort and relentless work ethic that you've taken to get to this point. So all the best, my bro.
Cheers, bro. Hopefully, after the fight, we can have a glass of red wine and Coke Zero together.
Bro, we'll be good. We'll be good. All right, folks.
Cheers,
Take
bro.
it easy.
Thanks, bro.
Get the fuck out of here.
Awesome.
Cheers, bro.
That's right.
Hopefully, we didn't go too much over.